Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today on this special occasion. My name is Nishtha, and I lead the communications and outreach team at the Maritime Research Center. It's a true pleasure to see so many passionate individuals gathered here to celebrate the maritime industry's vital role and discuss the themes that shape, our oceans and the waterways. This year's theme, which is Navigating a Sustainable Future, highlights our shared commitment to protect the maritime environment while also ensuring that the maritime sector continues to thrive. And as we navigate the challenges of climate change, pollution, and overfishing, we must also come together to find innovative solutions to address these challenges. We are privileged to have a distinguished lineup of speakers today, including decision makers, maritime experts, researchers, and industry leaders. They will share their insightful thoughts on sustainable practices and policies that can help us safeguard our oceans for future generations. Each speaker brings a unique perspective, and I encourage that you engage with them in the Q&A session that follows after the individual presentations are done. Before we dive into the discussions, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the significance of the World Maritime Day. This annual event serves as a reminder of the importance of the maritime industry, not just to global trade and economic development, but also to our ecosystems and communities. As we move through today's agenda, I invite you to think about how each one of us can contribute to a more sustainable maritime future. Whether you are a student or a researcher, a professional in the field, your voice and action matters. So thank you all for being here. Now, without doing further ado, I'd like to introduce our chief guest for today, which is Dr. Malini V. Shankar, who is the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Maritime University. She's also been a Director General of Shipping. Introducing a little bit about Dr. Malini Shankar, she's a career bureaucrat belonging to the 1984 batch of Indian Administrative Services, IAS. She's had an illustrious career spanning over 3.5 decades. Her last assignment was the Director General of Shipping on the rank and pay of the Secretary of the Government of India. In recognition of her professional achievements, she has been invited by academic and professional organizations to contribute to the policy making and represented India in the international fora. The International Maritime Organization, that is IMO, nominated Dr. Malini Shankar as an honorary member of the Board of Directors of the World Maritime University. But Dr. Malini Shankar could not join us personally due to her work commitments, but she has very kindly shared her message, which is an 8-minute video clip that her team has recorded and shared it with our team. I would request MRC's engineering team led by Shreya right now to play the video clip, please.
Heartiest greetings to the maritime fraternity and all friends in the maritime sector on World Maritime Day. A special thanks to Dr. Arnab Das for inviting me to share my thoughts on this occasion. I wish I could have been with you in person, but my schedule unfortunately did not enable this time. The work pursued by Dr. Das and his team Research Center, specifically in the area of underwater domain awareness, is futuristic and path-breaking. It seeks to explore, understand, and find solutions from the larger perspective of marine management and ocean governance. The word maritime indeed goes beyond ships and encompasses a wide spectrum of activities related to the ocean, to the seas, and to the rivers. Oceans, as we all know, are as old as humankind, nay, older than humankind, and seafarers are the world's foremost pioneers attempting to tame the waters for trade and commerce and for adventure and conquest. The World Bank estimated the global ocean economy to be worth $1.5 trillion annually. According to the OECD, approximately 40 million people are directly employed in ocean-based industries, with millions more indirectly employed in related sectors. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that fisheries and aquaculture provide employment to over 59 million people and contributes around $270 billion to the global economy every year. So we see that maritime is not just about shipping or about ports. It's about humanity, it's about community, it's about livelihood also. The advent of the industrial era, more particularly the invention of the steam engine a little more than 2 centuries ago, diverted the focus from the seas to the land. Recent regional and global developments have brought the focus back to the maritime arena and more particularly to maritime security. The Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative and the SAGAR, or Security and Growth for All in the region, were propounded by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi. In August 2021, the Prime Minister initiated the debate titled Enhancing Maritime Security, a Case for International Cooperation in the United Nations Security Council. It was for the very first time that maritime security was discussed in a holistic manner as an exclusive agenda item in a high-level UN meeting. The emphasis on maritime security and maritime domain awareness during the very recent Quad dialogue in the United States when Mr. Modi met Mr. Biden point towards a global interest in maritime domain. The theme for the World Maritime Day 2024 is Navigating the Future, Safety First. This theme reflects the IMO's mandate to enhance maritime safety and security, protect the maritime environment, and ensure regulatory development process anticipating the vast changes in technology. Recent conflicts and incidents in several parts of the world, including accidents involving vessels such as the Baltimore accident and the occurrences of cybersecurity breaches, have perhaps led to the adoption of the theme on safety. This theme is also linked to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and several of the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals. International regulations, crew awareness, situational awareness, crew safety equipment, the role of the master and that of the vessel security officer are all factors that play a significant part in ensuring the safety of the vessel and the crew. Geopolitical developments, piracy, as well as other attacks on vessels, the carriage of hazardous cargo, the misleading information often submitted to the master on the loaded cargo, all these factors exacerbate the situation and call for a higher and higher awareness and a higher degree of safety protocols as well as capability requirements on the part of the seafarer and the ship manager. We all are aware that the goals have been set by IMO for reduction of the greenhouse gases. These goals are sure to cause major technological developments in terms of logistics, in terms of hydrodynamics, machinery, and fuel, as well as skills of optimizing speed, skills from sustainable use of new energy technologies and fuels, managing cyber risks, autonomy, and control systems. Safe use and storage of carbon and LNG, as well as battery packages, retractable wind turbines, solar panels, and sails, as also advanced routing, calculation, and documentation of emissions, control center systems, and operations. Digitalization opens scope for new value chains and technologies to increase safety, automation, and enhance efficiency. Advancement in wireless technology and advanced technology, including Internet of Things and blockchain, digital twinning, that is model and database decision support, are also fertile fields for research. Autonomous ships call for data analytics and predictive analytical skills such as dispersed crew and remote operation, cargo tracking, cargo condition monitoring, logistics and value chain, small port operations, traffic, and fleet management. The maritime community in India is competent, proactive, and dynamic. Even as our seafarers fly the Indian flag high in the global industry, it is understood that continued improvements in training and education is a necessity. This applies to not only to technology, but an all-round knowledge of maritime management. On its part, the Indian Maritime University is deeply committed to enhancing the capabilities of the young seafarers on its own and in partnership with organizations like Maritime Research Center, with international organizations academia and industry. Besides the traditional STCW-oriented courses, we are expanding our activities to share knowledge in niche areas including accident investigation, port security, and disaster management, all of which coalesce into the field of maritime domain awareness. Closely associated with the safety of the vessel is, of course, the safety of the seafarers, and equally important is the protection of marine life that makes the ocean and the earth livable. The efforts in this direction need to be redoubled. My best wishes once again on this occasion, and my best wishes for fruitful and productive session on the Indian Ocean Framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Shreya, for playing this video. So that was the message that we had from Dr. Malini Shankar, who is the former Director General of Shipping, and she's the current Vice Chancellor of the Indian Maritime University. We thank her team for coordinating well with us, for putting this video together and providing us with the video. Before we move on to the next speaker, I'd like to request the others to keep their speakers there on mute while somebody's presenting, so that there's no noise disruption for the speaker and the presenter. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Commander Arnav Das. He is the founder and director of the Maritime Research Center. Dr. Das is an ex-naval officer with 2 decades of active service in the Indian Navy, and he holds a PhD degree from IIT Delhi with a specialization in underwater acoustics. He has worked on numerous projects, and he has many publications to his credit. I'd invite you, sir, for your introductory remark on the UDA framework and its relevance. Over to you.
Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you to the panelists for accepting our invite and joining us. And I think Malini ma'am gave a very good introduction and opening remarks to start this webinar. And I think she has provided the broad canvas on which we could steer this webinar. I'll try and talk about the underwater framework, and I have titled this presentation on UDA framework for comprehensive, structured, and inclusive. Comprehensive because it covers every aspect that requires to be addressed. The second is it is structured because it provides a way in which multiple stakeholders and multiple sectors can interact with each other or can exchange inputs or information with each other. And inclusive because it covers even the communities, even the young professionals, the students who are looking to contribute to a larger cause. And of course, digital transformation is recognized as the next tool for governance. I will, as always, emphasize on the tropical characteristics, and we know the Indo-Pacific and the strategic perspective. So I think I'll not now, the tropical challenges are very well known. One is definitely any UDA will require an acoustic survey, and the equipment, that is the sonar that is used for acoustic survey, suffers significant degradation in the tropical waters. I'm saying this in comparison to the tropical and the temperate water where these equipments were originally designed during the Cold War era. Now, that's a very big challenge when we have to really look at the UDA. Now, the Indo-Pacific, now that is a term used by the entire strategic community. By definition, the Indo-Pacific is the tropical waters of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So again, the emphasis on the tropical waters becomes very, very critical. Now, whenever we look at any aspect, I mean, Malini ma'am gave a very good introduction, and she talked about the comprehensiveness of the whole maritime. I mean, we know 75% of the earth is water. Now, if we have to really make sure that we harness this maritime sector in a more effective manner, we have to look at people, economy, nature. The communities, typically what we see is the communities get marginalized when we talk about developmental projects. And that creates a lot of socio-economic and socio-cultural challenges. Of course, anything today after the post-COVID era, post-pandemic era, large part of the world is facing massive economic recession, and the oceans or the maritime domain has significant uh, opportunity to offer to even take care of. So blue economy is something we need to look at. But while we are aggressively pursuing the blue economy, we must also look at the sustainability concerns and also the climate change concerns that arise out of it. Now, when we talk about the UDA framework, there are broadly 4 stakeholders who need to be taken into account: the security, the blue economy, the sustainability and disaster management, or sustainability and climate change risk management, and of course, science and technology or the digital transformation. Just to give you a sense of each of these stakeholders that we talked about, even in the freshwater system, underwater domain awareness becomes a very, very important aspect, whether for security, whether for even safety becomes a very important aspect. We've already had incidents to remind us, how devastating it could be. Then, of course, blue economy. We are increasingly looking at the oceans or the water bodies for food security, but we are definitely not doing it in the right manner. I mean, the fish stock is on the decline, but the bycatch is on a very, very high level of almost 80%. And then deep ocean mission or rare earth metals available in the oceans are being now aggressively pursued. But if we do not have a nuanced approach, we'll be running out of ideas. Just to give you some more understanding, I mean, the dredging is being used, but how sustainable is it is something we need to look at. Again, some pictures of disaster management. Now, science and technology, we understand very little. I mean, the data shows that we only know 5% of the underwater space. We know more about the space than the underwater domain. So there's a lot of work to be done. What is the kind of ecosystem that exists below the surface? How these components of the ecosystem interact with each other? But now, if we just look at the Indian EEZ, we are talking about a 3.7 million square kilometer of area. How many sensors can we put? So how do we leverage smart technologies or smart sensors to make sure that we are able to map the entire area? Now, this is the framework that we are talking about, which I call it comprehensive, structured, and inclusive. If you see 4 sides of the cube represent the 4 stakeholders. So the vertical construct is that each of these stakeholders may have their own requirement, but the core will remain the acoustic capacity and capability building, irrespective of who the user is or who the stakeholder is. If we do not pool in resources and synergize our efforts to enhance the acoustic capacity and capability building, we will not be able to achieve what we want to achieve. The second is the horizontal construct. We know very little about our underwater space. So a lot of sensing, analysis, and then only policy needs to be looked at. So a lot of local data or local sensing is required. And each of these smaller cubes could become, or many cubes within those cubes can become the career opportunities for the young India that we talk about, or not just in India. I mean, this entire tropical region or the Indian Ocean region, the population density is very high. So there can be meaningful career engagement or career opportunities for the young aspirational individuals that we have here. So the demographic advantage can be really taken forward, otherwise it becomes a disaster. So these cubes represent the various projects or various opportunities that will be available. Right now, it is only less than 4% that the maritime domain contributes to the GDP. So we are very happy today that we have representatives from the important ministries, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Environment, and also a former DG Shipping, and also represented by the industry people who have been engaged in in the sustainable growth for a long time. And of course, Ambassador Mudgal, who's been part of the initiation of the Sagar vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, the same thing, we have broken it down into smaller parts, like underwater radiated noise due to shipping has become a very big issue now. But the same capability can also help the stakeholder, like the acoustic stealth for the uh, strategic security community. So how do we combine all these? I mean, there would be concerns of data security or classified data being shared, but I think there is always a way forward where these entities can come together and focus on capacity building. Another example is sediment management. Tropical waters also have a very unique sediment transport pattern. So how do we, I mean, when we are seeking support from the West, we must be very mindful that we have a very unique condition which definitely the West will not understand. So indigenous effort is indispensable and we need to really focus on that. Now, inland water transport is a very massive initiative of the Government of India, but the sediment, the siltation is a very big problem there. So how do we look at it in a very, very, nuanced manner? Now, this is something I wanted to, in the last Quad Summit, not last, I mean, the one in 2021, the Quad leaders talked about data sharing and for greater public good. Now, I want to give you an example where we did a study on snapping shrimps, because these are very noisy and they can even prevent a submarine from operating in the tropical waters. I mean, the tropical waters are the habitat of snapping shrimps. But so we developed a digital tool to monitor snapping shrimp habitat and the soundscape. But the same work is also very important, and we have converted it into an APY tool, area under cultivation, productivity, and yield. So what I'm trying to bring out here is that the whole maritime community can come together for capacity building and translate this across multiple sectors or multiple users. So that's something, I mean, yesterday we had a very senior professor who had come, who visited us for a day, and he's working on India's maritime power. My submission is that capacity and capability building would be a very, very important component of India's maritime power. And I think UDA will become the main driver, or more specifically, the digital transformation will become the main driver of this maritime power. Marine spatial planning is something which is now, I mean, we are happy to have the UNESCO director with us today. He will be speaking after this. Marine spatial planning is now being taken forward by the UN agencies for better governance across the maritime space. But what we bring to the table here is, I mean, marine spatial planning in the conventional way of putting sensors or trying to collect data across the water bodies is going to be extremely difficult, particularly for the global south. It's a very, very expensive proposition. So how do we build more high technology, or I would like to talk about the modeling and simulation part of it. So this is what you see here is due to the underwater noise because of shipping. So this has been based on the modeling and simulation extracted from the AIS data and various multiple data sources. I'll not get into the technical details of it. So you can see the entire world can be mapped using this thing, and this is extremely low cost and very, very effective. And we have now worked on the MSP across multiple applications, and what you can see on the left-hand side, different applications, you just click, and we have my team led by Sridhar are steering this. And I mean, this is work in progress, and probably it will require multiple of my lifetime to populate this. But this is something we have started, and this gives a very different direction to the MSP that is being driven globally. So this is what I was trying to build in, and it also incorporates the tropical characteristics of the Indo-Pacific. Now, when we talk about any collaboration or any UDA capacity and capability building, it can be divided into three components: to see, to understand, and to share. To see is the sensors and the platform that will carry the sensor. So whenever we talk about collaboration or partnership, we can definitely, to start with, till the time we develop the capabilities, definitely work on collaboration for the 2C component, where we import sensors and the platform that can be deployed. But the second component to understand has to be indigenous for multiple reasons. One is definitely the Western experts will not have an understanding of the tropical waters. But the also important part is that the data needs to be protected, or data should not go out. So having an indigenous effort will be very, very important in this. The third is to share. Many people take this component very, very lightly, but I would like to emphasize on this, that there are different types of users, and each user will have its own limitations and also its own requirement. Now, if it is a policy maker, then he doesn't have a problem constraint of space or even so he can have larger displays with a lot of information available to him. But if you contrast this with a fisherman who has to be on a boat or a platform which is open to the weather, then he needs to be provided a screen which is portable, so a mobile app kind of a system. But also that has to be extremely specific. Now, if it's a shrimp fisherman involved in shrimp cultivation, then he needs to be given, and that to a particular species that he is interested in. So it has to be customized to that extent. And I think in India, the kind of talent that we have, all this is very easily possible. And we need to focus on this. Somehow this component gets completely ignored when we are developing systems. The second aspect, when I talk about digital transformation, I'm trying to put this from a livelihood perspective. Now, here we need three categories of people. One is the high-end data analytics. So these are smart engineers or people who can afford higher education, who can contribute to this thing. And we are struggling with employability opportunities. So this is one category. But once that data is picked up, then we need domain specialists. With the vast demographic advantage that we have, they can be specialized, trained to the customized requirement, and they can provide us input. But the third part is far more important for me. As I was talking in the beginning, our coastal communities or the native communities sometimes get completely excluded from the development process. The field deployment can be largely done by them. They need a bit of skilling, but they do have a lot of traditional knowledge, and it's part of their traditional practices in terms of dealing with the water body. So that can be utilized in this, and this can be a win-win for all of us. So I think the way we do it, outreach, engage, sustain. So this is also one of the outreach effort where we sensitize as many people and then start engaging at multiple level, at the young professional and the young student level who are looking for opportunities, but at the stakeholder level also who are looking at opportunities to kind of look at innovation and research, and then of course coming out with proposals to sustain this whole initiative. And of course we should look at a center of excellence which covers all the 5 aspects of research, innovation, skilling, knowledge, and also policy. So we have been, as an organization, we have been working on multiple platforms. UDA Digest, which looks at various literature, because this is a new area. So how to create as much body of work so that any person who's entering into this domain gets a lot of information. Then we run a UDA Research Center. All these are freely available. I would request everybody to please have a look at that. Then UDA Dialogue is an audio video format. Even what our experts are going to talk today is also going to get recorded into that. And then most important is the UDA Learning Center, where we have sets of e-learning modules on various subjects, which covers, as you can see, the basics of the UDA framework, then blue economy, climate change, sediment management, digital transformation, and also URN management has now been added to it. They have already been uploaded. The first set has been uploaded in the iGot platform of the Government of India. And I am told that we are the top rated domain specific e-learning module there. This is how the platforms look. And we generated a lot of documents also, which is reports are there, which people can definitely use. MSP is something we are driving very, very seriously. And I think I would like to thank Mudgal sir also for being our mentor on this initiative. So thank you very much.
For the elaborate presentation and for letting us all learn more about the maritime industry. Now moving on, we have the privilege of hearing from Dr. Timothy Curtis, who's the director of the UNESCO New Delhi Regional Office. Introducing a little bit about Dr. Curtis. Dr. Curtis has been working in the field of culture and sustainable development in diverse international contexts for over 25 years now, with just 20 years of those years dedicated to the UNESCO. He has served as a UNESCO program specialist for culture in East Africa and South Asia, and is currently the director of the New Delhi Regional Office. So today, Dr. Curtis will be addressing the critical challenges and opportunities in sustainability, particularly in context of our rapidly changing environment. However, Dr. Curtis could not join us again due to his work commitments, and we have very kindly received a video from his team wherein he's given a message to all of us. I'd request the MRC engineering team to play the same.
Excellencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to join you all today on this World Maritime Day. I'd like to start, of course, by thanking the Maritime Research Center for giving me the opportunity to address you all with these opening remarks at what is an important gathering. This year's theme, Navigating the Future Safety First, serves as a reminder to stay committed to building a safe, sustainable and thriving maritime sector. And I'd like to commend the MRC for its vision of the underwater domain awareness framework that brings together all stakeholders, be it maritime strategists, scientists, technology providers, blue economy entities, environmental regulators, and of course, disaster management authorities, so that all can work together to advance technologies and strategies essential for managing our oceans and ensuring their health. The ocean is our shared heritage. Our sea routes connect us. They're quite literally the lifeline of international trade. And most importantly, these oceans are, of course, crucial for the future of our planet. And as we know, unfortunately, this shared heritage faces significant challenges. Many of you will recall that in 2021, the United Nations launched the Ocean Science Decade, which at UNESCO we are proud to lead with our Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, otherwise known as IOC. Now, 3 years on, a lot has been done to promote ocean science and knowledge generation in order to improve the state of the ocean systems and facilitate the sustainable development of the vast marine ecosystem. However, a lot remains to be done still. The UNESCO IOC is working to support research institutions globally, enhancing public engagement and ocean literacy. Through initiatives like the Ocean Teacher Global Academy, UNESCO aims to equip individuals with the knowledge and skills necessary to better protect our oceans. In India, the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, INCOIS, has been instrumental in safeguarding coastal and marine ecosystems ever since it was established in 1999. Its recent initiative, the Integrated Ocean Energy Atlas, stands as an important resource for policymakers and researchers, helping to advance knowledge of marine energy resources and establish long-term sustainable energy solutions. So protecting our maritime is, of course, imperative and connected directly to the triple planetary crisis of climate disruption, biodiversity loss, pollution. This crisis threatens the well-being and survival of millions of people around the world, as was noted by Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General. We must promote collaboration in ocean science. India's ambitious deep ocean mission exemplifies this kind of commitment to collaborative efforts. And moving forward, we need to keep building on this momentum. The rapid warming of the ocean amplifies the frequency of extreme weather events, such as cyclones and heat waves. And for millions, as I said, livelihood, security, and shelter depend on these vital ecosystems. And this underscores the profound connection between land and sea. So we must embrace a new paradigm in our relationship with nature, a new culture, one that aligns with what UNESCO has been calling reconciliation with nature, or making peace with nature. UNESCO has been advocating for this interconnection between the human and natural world for over 15 years now. particularly through Man and the Biosphere Program, which puts the relationship between communities and their natural environment at the heart of conservation efforts. Initiatives in coastal regions, like in the Sundarbans and the Gulf of Mannar, exemplify how local communities can effectively manage and protect their natural resources, working all together to sustain the biodiversity. For example, in the Sundarbans, local communities are actively involved in restoring mangrove habitats, as we know, crucial for coastal protection. And globally, we have to think about how to replicate the success stories and rethink our overall environmental practices. And in this respect, knowledge management and sharing of best practices remains crucial. For these reasons, UNESCO has launched a portal for real-time monitoring of biosphere reserves and heritage sites, which serves as an important tool for exchanging this kind of essential knowledge. In India, for example, we partnered with the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change to host the 10th South and Central Asian Biosphere Reserve meeting in Chennai in November last year. Centered around the theme of Ridge to Reef, the meeting provided a collaborative platform for sharing insights and fostering good practices for sustainable development across the Central and Southern Asian regions. And as we build on these efforts, we must accelerate progress in ocean science. We must continue developing partnerships that lead to effective solutions which are aligned with the 2030 Agenda and its goals. For example, we also recognize at UNESCO the increasing vulnerability of cultural heritage in coastal regions due to climate change and sea levels. We've gathered extensive data on ocean health, but collecting all this information is not enough. It must be made accessible to all, and especially within and between scientific communities. Our Ocean Biodiversity Information System is one such initiative aimed at providing open access resources for conservation and sustainable development. Engaging youth and communities is also vital in cultivating this culture of reconciliation for now and for generations to come. It's imperative that the young people understand the issues at hand and what their role is in protecting the oceans. Ocean literacy and education are therefore critical components of our strategy. Despite the urgency of protecting the oceans, less than half of global school curricula address these topics, and as was noted in a UNESCO study in 2021. So to try and address this gap, we're supporting a number of member states in integrating environmental education, including ocean literacy, into their upper secondary systems. This would further translate not only into a better overall education, but of course to understand, to advance and increase the awareness of the ocean, of its beauty and its fragility. Another important initiative in environmental education is the Greening Education Partnership, which was launched at the United Nations Transforming Education Summit in September 2022, and aims to prepare every learner for a climate-ready future focused on 4 action areas: greening schools, greening curricula, greening teachers, and greening communities. So World Maritime Day is an important moment to remind us all of our duty and our unity to safeguard, World Maritime Day serves as a reminder call for all of us to unify in our efforts to safeguard our oceans. So World Maritime Day serves as a wonderful reminder and call for us to unify in our efforts into safeguarding the oceans. And I'd like for that to commend in particular, once again, the Maritime Research Center for bringing us all together and providing the much needed impetus to accelerate this work in protecting oceans. On behalf of UNESCO, I reaffirm our commitment to continue investing in science, to promoting education, and strengthening international collaboration for the sake of our oceans. Ultimately, it is all of our responsibility to ensure that our actions contribute to a healthy and sustainable ocean, and through that, to our own health and sustainability. We owe it to the future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a wonderful seminar, and thank you once again for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks, Chair, for playing the video. I'd like to thank the UNESCO team for putting this together. And in the video, Dr. Curtis explained the profound connection between land and sea. He also explained the interconnection between humans and natural world. We support UNESCO's cause and initiative on the biosphere reserves, and MRC has proudly participated with UNESCO during its International Biosphere Reserves Day for the past 2 years. Moving on, now I'd like to welcome our next speaker for the day. We have Shri P.K. Srivastav, who is Scientist G at the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Mr. P.K. Srivastav will share his insights on sustainable blue economy. He will also provide us valuable perspectives on how we can harness of our blue economy in the sustainable manner. Over to you, Shri P.K. Srivastav, sir.
Thank you, Nishtha, and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks, Arnab, for inviting me and to the team of MRC for this very important occasion on World Maritime Day functions. As Nishtha has mentioned, that I would be speaking on some aspects of the blue economy and sustainability aspects, which Ministry of Earth Sciences, which I'm representing here, has been spearheading after the initial thrust was given by the Economic Advisory Committee to the PM, which had formulated the 7 working groups, if people here in the audience would not know about, on how to formulate the blue economy concepts for India. I think going by statistics, I need not repeat all those issues, but for the sake of today's day, we all know about the 7,500 kilometers of coastline and 1,300 odd islands in the country, about 14% of the population living in coastal areas, and about 4 million fishermen engaged in sustainable fisheries activities in India, 90% of trade volume, etc., etc. Having mentioned that, what we realized while we were working on how to formulate a comprehensive framework, I would say not a policy document for blue economy in India. We started with a draft policy document drawn out from the 7 working groups, as I mentioned, heading each of the critical sectors of the maritime domain, whether it be the shipping, whether it relates to manufacturing, to fisheries, environment, mapping, marine spatial planning, as mentioned by Arnab. So all these were comprehensively put into a framework document, and we had actually moved forward with the draft policy with the government. What the thought process presently is that we, instead of looking primarily at a policy perspective angle, it would ideally be left to the sectors to take forward their individual initiatives, whether it be the fisheries or the shipping, which have their own targets and their agendas which are there, like the Sagarmala project for the shipping, the fisheries policy is there, whereas the Ministry of Earth Sciences itself is steering the Deep Ocean Mission, as have been mentioned by one of the speakers, Dr. Curtis, I believe, which has the verticals dealing with science, technology, and research in the deep sea areas. So these areas are where we are focusing on. And while we are working on individual sectors of the maritime domain, the capacity building aspects, as highlighted by Arnav and his team, and also by Curtis in his address, is very critical, because not only in the field of maritime marine shipping, etc., but there are huge areas and gaps which we see specifically in the R&D and critical biotechnology areas emanating from the marine biotechnology aspects, which have not been adequately addressed in these, not only the school, college, as well as the higher education institutions. So a lot of opportunities in this sector are still available. To give you another very interesting highlight, which has been spearheaded by the ministry, recently has been on the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, which our External Affairs Minister, the treaty on BBNJ has been signed yesterday by the Government of India, which was again spearheaded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So we are actually signatory to protecting and conserving 64% of the ocean space which is existing, which has a large amount of biodiversity as well as resources which are still untapped and not very clearly mapped. So underwater domain awareness would, and the technologies would play a very, very crucial and critical role as we move forward to exploit these new areas which are beyond national jurisdiction to for the betterment of the humankind. I thought I will also at this juncture mention about some of the projects and points which we have been moving on a mission mode project, which are the deep ocean missions verticals. So one of the critical areas where we are developing is a manned submersible which would carry scientists and researchers to the deep ocean floor up to 6,000 meters. And we intend to have its first demonstrative launch somewhere before the end of this year, but not to 6,000 meters, just initial launch, and maybe another couple of years we would have the technology to go down to those depths. And parallelly, we are also looking at developing technologies for deep ocean mining, which again has to be done in a more pragmatic and following the regulatory codes established by the International Seabed Authority as and when it comes into being. But we should be ready to exploit those resources where we have our own area allotted to us by the Seabed Authority. The resource mapping has been done, environmental assessment is being ongoing for some time. We have the data, and these are all critical rare earths which would be required for future technologies. So there's a big linkages between what is being developed by the ministry for the future. And also one of the key areas where we are working on under the deep ocean mission is on ocean thermal energy, OTEC conversion, which is very critical for our island areas, which are lacking fresh water as well as energy, renewable energy sources. And an important aspect which was mentioned by Dr. Curtis also, that we have come out through our institute on the energy potential from our Indian Ocean EZ through our institute INCOIS. So not only we have tapped into the offshore wind energy or the offshore wave energy, but also looked at such other areas of ocean energy such as salinity gradient. We have looked at currents, we have looked at tidal streams, etc. And a potential has been provided so that these can then be developed technologically as well as sustainably for our future generations. I think I'll not speak much now further on this and stop here. Maybe I'll take some questions at the end if required. Thank you, Arnab and his team, for inviting me. All the best for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. P.K. Srivastava, for joining us from the Union Ministry of Earth Sciences. Thank you for your insights and speech, which were very valuable for all of us on this special occasion of World Maritime Day. Now, moving on, I'd like to call upon Ms. Devilina Bhattacharjee, who is the Chief Operations Officer at Climacrew, for her intervention in the ongoing conversation around oceans and maritime domain. Introducing Ms. Bhattacharjee a little bit, she's a data scientist with over 15 years of experience using data to solve the real-world business problems across various sectors. She actively speaks about leveraging the power of data science to tackle global issues like climate change and food security. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Devilina Bhattacharjee for today's intervention section. Here.
So, Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, very happy to be here. Thanks for Dr. Anna for inviting me to this session and valuable insights shared so far. Incredible learning for me as well. But quickly presenting our story, and I'm happy to kind of take off from the points laid out by the previous speakers on the important for community-based engagement when it comes to coastal resilience building, climate resilience building, and preparing for the future of coastal communities and ocean frontiers as a whole. Because what I'm going to present to you is a very ground up or a bottom up story. We started our journey back in the day, figuring out what can be done for a better climate resilience for coastal ecosystems like India and many such around the world. So I'd like to quickly share the the start of a journey where this is where we started back in 2018. We were back then working with the United Nations World Food Program and by a couple of space organizations, and we were analyzing the effect or the impact of disasters. This is one of the projects that we're doing, and there's an uncanny similarity that you see on countries or nations bordering oceans and the index of natural disasters. And you will see the higher the natural disaster index per country, the closer it is to the oceans. And India is one of the top three when it comes to disaster risk index. So naturally, what follows through from this discovery is that we need to build a stronger coastal ecosystem, which means community, which means sustainable livelihoods for these communities there, and also kind of strengthen the ecosystem for preparing for a better food security, improve food security in the future. We dug in further. We started working with the United Nations World Food Program, and we realized that the entire dialogue of coastal ecosystems and any kind of food security from the oceans is largely missing, not only for India but across the world. And where we're talking about almost 800 million small scale fisher folks, and I'll talk about marginal communities here because they need the most amount of attention. So even though there are over 800 million small scale fisheries, fisher folks in India, directly dependent on across the world, and 40 lakhs odd in India directly dependent on fishing as a train for their day-on-day sustenance. But over and above, seafood as ecosystem feeds 3 billion people. So we are talking about a large ecosystem that really needs resilient adaptation and mitigation. And everybody is aware of the sea level rises, which is affecting industries, industrial towns, various infrastructures that are very close to the sea. But during our study of the ecosystem, we discovered, and this was something that we were very happy to discover, that and we studied India, Sri Lanka, and couple of other Southeast Asian nations, that the ecosystem per se are very digitally savvy. We went on with an expectations that maybe we'll have to train them in a lot of gears and a lot of digital literacy, but what we realized that uh, climate, oceans, and oceanic ecosystems are generally not part of a mainstream dialogue in most of the countries that you see. So they have developed on their own, and they have learned multiple different technologies to keep up to the standards of technology, and they are digitally pretty prone. So that made our work easy and also made our engagement to their with them faster. So with that knowledge, what we kind of sliced into the problem, if you look into the problem, what all are the issues that they're facing? One is the fact that their operational cost have, and we're talking about marine fisher folks here, small scale, mid scale, not the large scale one. The operational cost have gone way higher, which means why so? Because they are having to spend more and more time out in the sea, uh, go further into the ocean to catch the fish, have multiple different or increase coastal climatic, uh, your cyclones that are affecting, at least for India, the eastern and west coast, the increased amount of cyclones affecting per year that has gone up twice in both the coasts. So their number of fishing days have reduced. So their overall the amount of money they were deriving from fishing has come down, and the operational cost have gone high up. So where the first thing that you start is providing them climate weather advisories in their own languages, fine tuned to their area of operations, and in a way that they can, really just look at it and go. So we spend a lot of time working with this, coastal ecosystems, marine fisher folks across western and eastern part of India. We had, and then of course my team also consists of uh, the people from fishing family backgrounds. So we did a thorough study of what kind of information they need, what time of the day they need, when are they looking for, what are the traditional knowledge, because we are not replacing the traditional knowledge, we are augmenting the traditional knowledge with addition to what has happened from a climate change, climate risk, climate crisis perspective, which their traditional knowledge is not being able to keep up to. So that led us into a study, and we provide them, and then we started providing them marine and weather advisories on our app. This app is available in 9 different languages, which they can look from the comforts of their home and decide where to go for fishing, where not to go for fishing. What is the ocean current like? What are the algae blooms like? What is the weather looking like? So where they basically cut down their costs. So our basic KPI here is to be able to kind of reduce their cost, reduce the cost of fishing, and to be able to make them a little bit more sustainable, profitable. And we did this over last 6.5 years, and it's still there. And so the app is used, and by communities that are lining our oceans of the Indian oceans primarily. We also worked with the United Nations World Food Program in countries like Sri Lanka, which is almost a similar kind of a profile. And we have also deployed the app in some other few other Asian countries. But having said so, the intention was not to just provide them the technology and just leave it at there. We wanted to understand if this is attending to their climate resilience completely. There's something else that we need to do. So there are a couple of other things that came along with it. Is that these communities are very, very disconnected, very remote. So apart from just the app, we were also providing market linkages to be able to kind of study their trade better, to be able to help them sell the fish. So we have done that in the past as well, linking them to ecosystem, not necessarily we doing that, but linking them to ecosystems that will help them to the last mile supply chain. So that led us to really work with more than 60 odd fishing societies across India, 9 coastal states, a bunch of fishing community members, both fisherwomen and fishermen. And there where we realize what are their needs. Dr. Arnab was mentioning the fact that engaging the community at the grassroots, also understanding what are the skill gaps, and also understanding how to deliver a certain knowledge in a way that they understand, and you can train the youth. Because if you have to really go into a long-term dialogue of improving our coastal communities, improving our climate resilience, improving the access to the rich marine resources that India is surrounded by, you will need the communities are your foot soldiers. So you'll need them to really analyze, understand, and learn everything which they can adopt and implement at their end. So we did a bunch of programs, and we realized that good that we have been able to kind of cut their fuel cost up to 40%, but also the fishing as a dialogue is becoming unsustainable because of multiple different issues. One is fishing overall, as in across the world, has not been very sustainably done. In India, comparatively to the world, we have done less damage to our surrounding waters, Indian fishermen. We don't have the means and the methods to really do that damage. So, in a way, a silver lining on the cloud that we have not really gone into degrading all our fishing resources. But even the fact remains that it is still unsustainable. So the communities needed an additional source of income, which did not take them away from their local villages. They did not mean them to do a climate migration to a nearby urban space and engage in gig workers. So we had to find them something that they can do with their traditional knowledge that they have, doesn't have to do too much of upskilling. And that's why seaweed blended in lovely and was kind of a extension of the dialogue that we were already having. So seaweed was fairly new for us, but what we also realized that is easier to be trained. It needs less amount of material infrastructure. It can be done alongside fishing, because we're looking for an additional income source and not an alternative source. And it can be done when you're not going out for fishing, and it can be done by the fisherwoman. So one of the key takeaways were that there was a lot of or a bigger involvement of fisherwomen when it comes to seaweed, and a formal engagement by fisherwomen than it comes to than in other fishing activities. And seaweed overall has been a win-win-win for not only the communities but also for the the people around, the environment as a whole, and also the fact that it is a sustainable profit making ecosystems. I mean, you cannot drive a dialogue if it is not providing enough finance for the grassroots and for also the other players in the entire supply ecosystem. So seaweed for us present as a lovely opportunity where we our main interest in seaweed is, of course, apart from the fact that it provides an additional income source, it is also highest in carbon sequestration, which is needed for the current state of the world, the state of our ocean surrounding us, and the fact that you have enough and more varieties of seaweed where also you can explore multiple different value add extraction. So as I said, it's very important to find a solution that can provide them sustainable income sources in the future, where and it can hold through. So it's not only important for us, not only as just farming a seaweed was not the first thing. It was a means to an end where we can explore the various benefits that is being derived out of it. Second bit is the fact that whatever you extract from seaweed is completely your organic, it is biodegradable, biocompostable, and completely bioderived, which is not which is in very unique even compared to other bioderived or biodegradable materials. It gives us, and for India as a country, it gives us multiple different value adds. Like for the farming or the agri input, it gives potash, which goes into the farming infrastructure. It's from the sea, but to the multiple applications of the land. So that's where our venture into seaweed started. And to be specific, India has the golden opportunity to really scale and grow the seaweed ecosystem in India. More than enough coastlines, and even 10% of our in our extended economic zones, if you cultivate, it provides almost 20 million hectares. Availability of labor, there is not too much of upskilling needed by the community to really start engaging in seaweed. It can be easily done. They all these fishing community members or coastal farmers, they know how to really swim in the sea. So the availability of labor is there. Good thing happening is that there are a lot of support from the government in the last few years. Our Coastal Aquaculture Act is being revised to include seaweed, which kind of regularizes the space or legalizes, provide the legal framework where these communities can start and cultivating, as it did to the shrimp farming. The biodiversity laws has addition of seaweed. Our Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampadana Yojana has multiple different incentives or subsidies that are given to seaweed farmers. So there is enough and more government support. So of course, in the last few years, you have seen the PMO office talk about seaweed. And so that's a boost to the industry as a whole. And anything that you do needs a market infrastructure. The market needs to drive it. You cannot continue something that is in the market demand. So enough and more demand. 90% of the current need for seaweed is imported in India. So there is a big requirement for import substitution there. And the fact that you are integrating so many markets, and the market and the entire seaweed application is it's a niche industry, but it is developing as we go. So there are multiple innovations that it allows India to really explore. So as of today, our work is what involves is we basically train these communities in cultivating seaweed. One step that happens before that, and I will come to the thing about the market again later. But one thing that we do as a team member, and that is our core strength, is to analyze various different weather and marine parameters, where we really do multiple different spatial analysis, multi-criteria analysis, to analyze where are the best spots to not only for the fishing zones that went as an advisory to fishermen, but also the best spots to cultivate seaweed. Why this is important? This is important Because if you don't analyze the marine fronts, and you see with like any crop, right? So you really need to understand where is the salinity, what is the sea surface temperatures, what are the pH values, what are the various dissolved oxygen, the multiple different parameters that we do that let us understand what species to grow where, and which can kind of promise the best optimum growth, where the communities are also feeling encouraged to cultivate this. So that's something that we do, and this is important. We spoke about, we were speaking about marine spatial planning. A big aspect of that planning is to get the right data in place, be it be spatial data or be it be ground up in situ data, and we use a combination of both. And that helps us understand the best fronts for growing seaweed, and we do it across India. And that helps us to really also understand what is the seasonality of where to grow. And that being said, we train the communities to cultivate the seaweed, and then we buy back and extract value adds, and that's a continuous process that is in multiple, different regions that we're doing. But what is also essential in this day of climate change, that you not only you need to have a kind of a climate risk or de-risking model. So when we analyze the seaweed cultivation, we make sure that there are various stages that cultivation is happening and possible. Suppose there is a, we have planned out for the next 6 months, and the weather doesn't hold good, where the risk is the biggest risk. You should have other areas where you can also cultivate seaweed in the present, and where your communities are not suffering from a sudden gap of income. So that's where multiple other uh, things like a salt pan or aqua ponds kind of help us into really engaging or continuing the dialogue of seaweed farming. And these are things that can be done alongside as well. And we do a shallow, mid-depth, high levels of farming. Of course, high sea is something that is currently being worked out. We are developing the patterns. We are looking at innovations where it is more climate resilient, but this is what the plan is. And last but not the least, where you see there's an integrated seaweed park that you see at the end of the this one of the points, which is seaweed and fishing go hand in hand. By which I mean, you can actually take a portion of the ocean, you can put a fish cage, and you can do seaweed farming around it. It improves the biodiversity of the area. It also gives a single place for the communities to have multiple different sources of income, and that's what we are looking to grow. And that it's something that we're doing alongside other research organizations and other seaweed enthusiasts in the country. And we believe that's a significant boon to the biodiversity loss that has happened to the oceans around the world, and also the fact that the community has double benefit in continuing this work. So having said so, we basically now, since that we started working on seaweed, we have been able to engage fish farmers, and you can see a bunch of women. There's a kind of training that we provide, and it is a half-a-day training. We have worked with Dr. Arnav and his team in these training programs in Maharashtra. We are primarily, our anchor states are Maharashtra and Gujarat, but we're also working with other states in India, and we are looking to scale this work across India and across the world. Uh, Before I finish my conversation, I would like to kind of talk about the impact that we do. The organization that I represent, Climate Crew, we believe in impact first. The fact that whatever you do should have a positive impact towards the entire your ecosystem that you're working with, but also should have a positive impact environmentally and a long-lasting impact toward climate. So the first thing is the fact that we engage with a lot of fisher women. That helps us in addressing your involvement or engaging or improving the gender participation in the ecosystem. I've been part of the fisheries ecosystem for more than 6 years now, and when purely dealing with fishing, there was very little involvement that we could do with the women fisher folks. Though they are 70% of the supply chain, they're then represented formally. Here, seaweed allows me to do that. So that was something that we were really interested. One of the main factors that is driving the dialogue in the community, and you'll see large amount of women really helping us drive it. The second, one of the things that are being very widely talked across the world is the fact that it is the highest potential of carbon sequestration, which is definitely needed by the world's oceans and also by creature on land like us. And Here, the interesting piece is there's much to be done here, and seaweed has multiple different varieties to over 200,000 varieties. But there's proof on ground that it helps in carbon sequestration, helps in purifying the oceans, helps in increasing biodiversity of the area where it is grown. We are working, since we are tech backed company, we are working with few of the enthusiasts, or few of the people who understand the climate modeling, to be able to build those models, to be able to kind of measure it, because it is very important that we measure, so that we can also understand how to really scale it and where to grow what. So that's something that really helps us. So a typical back of the hand matrix is 1 average square kilometer of seaweed farm can help secure more than 1,000 metric tons of carbon, which is more than whatever mangrove can do. So SDGs being one of the cores, and a few of the SDGs 2, 5, 8, 12, 13, 14, be it be life on land, be it be life underwater, be it be your sustainable consumption. These are some things that are at core of what we do. We are a for-profit company, but we are a thoughtful for-profit company, and we make sure that our continued dialogue with the marine ecosystem has made us aware of the various things that can be that India as a country holds, has the various marine resources that is yet to be explored, yet to be sustainably explored rather. But the fact that a few of the previous panelists were talking about important minerals that is coming off the oceans. So we look to kind of further dialogue as we go. Our marine spatial planning that we do internally, we hope to extend that to studies that are being done by other marine enthusiastic communities here. We're happy to kind of collaborate there, happy to kind of share our knowledge, and happy to kind of understand where a collaboration between the society, the government, and the markets can be done. The three can come together to build a sustainable model that is needed for a better future tomorrow as a whole. So I will end my presentation there. Happy to take all questions regarding our work later. Again, I'm Devina from Climate Crew, and lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlina Bhattacharjee, for sharing your thoughts and explaining to us the work that your company, Climate Crew, has been involved in. It was quite an insightful presentation from your end. Thank you so much for joining us. So as part of the next segment for today's webinar, so this round is basically for anybody who has any questions or any interventions that you would want to make, or any questions that you would want to give to the speakers who've been here till now today. I'd request the audience to kind of like intervene or share their thoughts if they have any. And sir, if you want to like call upon somebody.
Arun Saigal sir, you may like to give some comments. It's open to everybody. I mean, anybody who wants to say something or either comment or.
Like if there are any questions that you want to ask or you want to engage in a conversation with the speakers till now.
Okay, Nishtha, then we can request Mudgal sir to give his.
Right. Yes, sir. Now I'd like to call upon Ambassador Anup Kumar Mudgal, who is a former Indian diplomat who served as the High Commissioner to Mauritius from 2014 to 2016. Post-retirement, Ambassador Mudgal has been engaged in several voluntary assignments, the important ones being the member of the FICCI's Task Force on Blue Economy. He's also part of the member steering committee on blue economy under PMEAC, and where he has chaired working group on security, strategic dimensions, and international engagement. Ambassador Mudgal is also part of MRC's Strategic Advisory Board. I'd now like to call Ambassador Mudgal to share his thoughts with all of us, and it's always a pleasure to have you during our webinars and for personal interactions as well, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Nishtha, and thank you, Arnab. I very carefully listened to all the presentations. I see, how things are progressing. into the direction that we have been now talking for several years. Malini, who is my batchmate, she gave a very comprehensive presentation, largely covering various aspects of blue economy and sustainability of the oceans. Then, of course, Mr. P.K. Srivastava, again, covered several aspects of oceans, ocean economy, and sustainability. And then Curtis gave his perspective on how the world community is looking at the opportunities and challenges presented by the oceans. And finally, I was really impressed by Devlina's presentation. This is what we have been talking, that when we talk about MSP, the marine spatial planning. Now, if we are looking at a single unit, one for all, it's not going to work. MSP would develop in smaller regions depending upon those niche requirements. And that is what, Devlina, you are doing, and I'm very happy that you're doing it. But when we talk about MSP, in fact, Mr. Curtis mentioned, let's reconcile with the oceans. Yes, because we have mistreated the oceans so long. There is a feeling that time has come to reconcile with the oceans. I would say not only with the oceans, but the entire environment. Time has come that we reconcile with the environment. And believe me, if I were the ocean and you came to me for reconciliation, I would probably say, please leave me alone. Yes. Because the way we have hurt the environment as a whole, in our interest, I'm sure the environment as a whole is fed up with us. They must be, I'm sure, wondering why the evolutionary process led to the Homo sapiens, who were supposed to be wiser than all other species. But it turned out that the wisdom was somewhere stored in lock and key. And we went into what is called selfish interest. We didn't think of the environment. We only thought of ourselves. And this thought of ourselves, Arnab, I have said this in the past, we thought good life means more consumption. Yes, somehow prosperity was linked to consumption. More you can consume, better you are in society, higher you are in the pecking order. Now, that is where I think the wisdom kind of was completely signed off. Now, if we have to reconcile with the environment, and if we have to reconcile with the oceans, I think because the oceans has a very different language. And that language we will not understand so easily. Because we would not understand the language in the initial phases, finally, the ocean's response will come as punishment. And that is what we are worried about. Because we do not want to ignore the ocean's argument and allow it to go to a stage where then ocean comes back with a heavy punishment on humanity. Now, I'm sure we all heard Secretary General talking about, on today's theme, and he spoke about what kind of challenges the humanity is facing, so-called existential threats. And one of the existential threats he has also always mentioned, and again, he mentioned this week, was climate change. He says climate change is probably the most serious of all the existential threats to humanity. And then, of course, he repeats, he says, we have found the reason why it's happening. And of course, the villain there are the greenhouse gas emissions. Yes. So we have identified the villain, yes, as if once we sort the carbon dioxide out, the problem will be over. You see, if you ask me really, carbon dioxide is an essential component of the planetary functions. The humans did not create carbon dioxide. It was always part of the planetary functions, and it plays an essential role in the survival of life on the Earth. So we can look at, because carbon dioxide has become a villain because we did not care. We went in for excesses everywhere. Now, excess of everything is bad. So is the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. We started burning the carbon resources which were stored by the nature for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. And we burnt them in less than 200 years. So obviously there has to be a consequence. So carbon dioxide is not the villain. Now I'm sure I don't have to say that. These are our actions which are the villains. Now when it comes to reconciling, let's reconcile, which means if the nature cannot speak a simple language that we can understand, and please try go on their behalf and try to understand what they're trying to say. And we talk about, say, MDA, maritime domain awareness, which was basically the surface of the ocean. And then, Arnav, I have been saying that for years now. You see, if climate change is the existential threat, the single most important factor in that are the oceans. You see, through electric vehicles, through all other things, we are just chipping at the tip of the iceberg. For example, if you transition all your transport sector, say from fossil fuel to, say, renewable energy, what is the contribution of entire transport sector in greenhouse gas emissions? Just about 10% plus minus 1. Yes. And the oceans absorb almost 33% of the carbon dioxide that we produce. And over and above that, it stores that carbon dioxide for years and years, for millions of years. And there we are talking about, we are not kind of paying attention to what the ocean is saying. Even for that greenhouse gas emission mitigation, we are going to the ocean and we say, all right, we'll get the rare earth elements there to produce batteries. Yes. So what? If you produce all the batteries, you may save maybe 6% of the greenhouse gas emissions. But what kind of risk are we taking? You see, the ocean's health is absolutely central to any idea of sustainability. We agree with the ocean and leave it alone. Let's see what happens. But if we can't leave it alone, then let's start treating the ocean more responsibly. And that is where, Arnav, I have been saying, the actual happening in the ocean is underwater. Whatever happens in the ocean, we see the symptoms on the surface, but the actual dynamics is underwater. This could be the physical dynamics, this could be the chemical dynamics, this could be the biological dynamics. Whatever we look at, it is underwater. Unless we understand what's happening underwater, you cannot think of MSP. MSP is largely dependent on your understanding of the underwater. Because you need to understand the consequences of your action in the ocean, and the consequences are happening underwater. The ocean is so big. Now, how can you really kind of study and constantly 24/7 that large water body underwater. That is where our UDA framework is important, which means Devlina mentioned about data. Data is the key for underwater domain awareness. It's data driven, basically. Now, if you have data, then you understand the language of the ocean. And as a result, you can then negotiate and reconcile with the ocean. So, your UDA framework. Now, if you can't do everything everywhere, can you develop systems? Right? Can you develop those systems which are scalable? Which means you develop a system in different parts of the ecosystem or marine ecosystem. And based on the data, if you develop systems, diagnostics, the other day I mentioned about, say, a healthcare diagnostics. Now, I was telling, for example, when they do my blood report, looking at the blood report, they tell me how my heart is behaving, how my kidney is behaving, how my liver is behaving. They don't have to open my body every time. You see, that is what UDA framework is all about, Arnab. Which means you don't have to dig into the ocean every time. But those diagnostics will tell you what's happening underneath. Yes. And that is where I'm really happy that more and more people are paying attention to the importance of underwater domain awareness. Whatever we are thinking into future in terms of environment management, reference to oceans, it is the UDA. Understand the underwater. Based on that understanding, develop the systems which then can act as diagnostics. That is what, Arnab, I thought I will briefly sum up. People are worried about the ocean health and environment as a whole. People are talking at the highest level, but because this problem is not a small problem. This problem cannot be resolved within the air-conditioned rooms and discussions. This requires a whole of society approach, which means people, education, industry, policy, safety and security, you name it. Unless we all come together, we cannot solve this problem. We cannot reconcile with nature. Unfortunately, we are still fighting with the nature. Yes. Rather than trying to reconcile, some people are talking about reconciliation, but a large number of people are still fighting against the nature. They want to defeat the nature. Please, let's not defeat the nature. Let's live with the nature. Yes. We belong to, this is our home. Yes. We can't defeat our own home. Yes. We are part of this ecosystem. So with these words, I congratulate once again MRC, your entire team. You keep bringing people together for sensitizing that we owe a responsible behavior to the next generation. And believe me, if this generation doesn't do it, it will be too late. So with these words, I thank you very much for giving me a chance to be here, listen to people who are expert in their respective fields, and then express my opinion. I feel helpless in a way because the challenge is too big. Words are big, but the actions are small. Now let's see how we resolve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mukul, sir. Thank you so much for your insightful speech. It's always an honor to listen to your speech and hear from you every time there's a webinar that we host, and we have you as one of our speakers. Is always a remarkable opportunity for us at the Maritime Research Center as well. Thank you.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
move on. Thank you, sir. Now we move on to the next speaker.
We have Bharat, Mr. Bharat has just joined. So, Nishtha, you can request him to join.
We have Mr. Bharat from the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change to share his remarks with all of us today.
He's actually traveling. If we can join, or I think Nishtha will go ahead with Prafulji.
Can we have Mr. Praful Kalera, who's MRC's advisor on blue economy, to share his kind remark with all of us. Just giving a little bit about Mr. Praful. He is one of the pioneers in the growth of logistics in the country. Over to you, Praful, sir. We are looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you, Nishtha. Hello, everyone. It's always my pleasant task to do the vote of thanks. But before that, I'd like to share some information with you. Yesterday, on the eve of the International Maritime Day today, we were honored with a visit of Dr. Professor P.V. Rao, a very distinguished scholar who had obtained his MA in Political Science from the University of from Osmania University, and then he went on to do his MPhil and PhD in European Studies from JNU. He then was awarded the British Council Scholarship at the London School of Economics. And then he got a postdoctoral Fulbright scholarship at the Johns Hopkins University. Then he was again got the fellowship from the Ford Foundation at the Bandara Naike International Center in Colombo. So it was a very, very interesting day yesterday, where we spent the day with Professor Rao, right from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening till we dropped him back to his hotel. And very interesting interactions. Our whole team at MRC was there. And Dr. Rao, a very wise man, I would say, shared his experience. He's written a lot of books. One of his earlier books was Indian Naval Diplomacy. And then he explained to us the difference between maritime power and naval power. And he's presently working on a book which he's got an extended timeline now because he wasn't keeping well. So it's going to be ready by the end of this year. And he had come specifically at the request of Ambassador Sudhir Devre to visit MRC so that he can complete the book. And I'm very happy to say that, to share with all of you that he said that the last chapter will have a lot of MRC in it. He was very happy seeing the work we are doing, the body of work which has been built over the last 7 years is very, very substantive. There is a lot of research papers, innovative papers, a whole lot of things which MRC has achieved, MRC and the team, of course. So it was very interesting in the interactions with them. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Malini ma'am, Shankaran ma'am, the International Maritime University for her opening remarks. And then I'd like to thank Dr. Tim Curtis and Professor P.K. Srivastav, who had to leave early. And then, of course, Ms. Devlina ma'am, Bhattacharjee ma'am of the Clima crew. It was very interesting, ma'am, your statement that the seaweed farming is the nexus of all SDGs. MRC also has done a lot of work with seaweeds. And then, of course, sorry, Bharat Singh ji could not join us from the Ministry of Environment. And of course, our very own mentor, Ambassador Mudgal, who has endorsed the whole of society approach for maritime, everything maritime. And that endorses the view of the MRC, which has always been saying that and pleading with everyone in Delhi and all the powers that be that there should be a whole of nation approach behind this, behind everything maritime, because see, water is 75% of the earth, and water is a global common. The oceans are a global common, and wherever on whichever shores the waters wash onto, they have a huge bearing. They have a huge bearing. 80% of the world's population lives within 200 nautical miles of the oceans. And despite global warming, they are still coming closer to the ocean. Despite the oceans rising, they still want to come closer. That is the attraction of water. And that is the reason why we are celebrating this International Maritime Day, to draw the attention of everyone to this very important element in our lives. So thank you, Ambassador, for your view, for sharing your views, and I hand it over back to Nishtha. I think I'm through with it. Thank you, thank you so much, and I would like to thank the whole team at MRC for doing this, for doing a wonderful job. I've been interacting with them on and off, and it's been very, very satisfying for me being part of this journey. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's attending the online webinar today. I know in Pune, it is a very rainy day today. There is a red alert. But there is a red alert. But there's a red alert. Yes, there's a red alert. And the red alert. Yes. This is also one of the views. I mean, there's a joke, lightly I would like to put it, that people are wondering in Pune whether the monsoon is withdrawing or it's the onslaught of the monsoon. So exactly like all these climate change phenomena, the extreme climate which we see, like very fewer in the whole monsoon season, we have less rainy days but more intensive rain. So that's a phenomena which is being which is being observed. Pune, I would like to share this personal experience of mine. I've never seen so much humidity in Pune earlier. This year has been extremely humid. I don't know why, but this is what I've been feeling. Maybe I'm getting old, whatever. But this is not the extreme weather phenomena across the world. And sometime back, I was attending a session. There is this Pani Panchayat in Pune. It's a very old organization set up 50 years ago. So they were celebrating their 50th anniversary. And we had Dr. Professor Paranjpe, who's an authority on the Ganga. And he said, is the world ready to deal with lesser rainy days and more heavier rains in this part of the world, especially in India? You see so much rain in Rajasthan and Delhi and parts. I hail from Rajasthan originally. So Rajasthan is not equipped to handle so much rain. So that's quite a problem. The foundations aren't so deep and it's a big mess in cities like Jaipur and all over Rajasthan. So I don't know how. So definitely we as a people have to put our all might together to deal with all these phenomena, which I think we are to be blamed as human beings. We have upset the balance of nature, and largely we are to be blamed. The responsibility, the onus lies upon us. How do we deal with, and with all our technology at our beck and call, I'm sure that if we do apply ourselves and wake up, which the world is waking up to, and put our minds to it, and I'm sure the governments of the world should be able to do something before it is too late. Thank you so much, Nishtha. I hand it over back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for your vote of thanks. Now that we're wrapping up, I would request if Arnav sir has any last thoughts to share with everybody.
No last words. Just thank you to everybody. I mean, the panelists and the audience very, very distinguished audience. And I think we had a very distinguished panel today, cutting across multiple government ministries and also international bodies. So thank you very much, everybody, for and wish everybody a World Maritime Day. So let's all commit ourselves to a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank all my colleagues from the communications team, from the engineering team, the research team, for helping us conduct this webinar, and a special thanks to Dr. Commander Arnab Das for giving us this opportunity to host everybody and celebrate this day on World Maritime Day. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.